HOA President vs. Nightmare Neighbor Part 1 on Wednesday morning at 7:23 a.m. I made a $4.7 million mistake that would send someone to federal prison for 15 years, and it all started with a wheelchair ramp I decided to destroy. My name is Barbara Mitchell. I'm 47 years old, HOA President of Lakeside Gardens, a gated community in Naples, Florida, with 312 homes. I've been running this neighborhood for 6 years. Fair. Professional. By the book. Until Claire Ashworth moved in and turned my life into a living nightmare. Let me back up. Lakeside Gardens is beautiful. 312 waterfront properties, perfectly manicured lawns, Olympic-sized community pool, 6 tennis courts, private boat dock. Monthly dues are $175 per household. We maintain everything perfectly. I work with my best friend, Frank Delgado, retired contractor, 62 years old, widower, our maintenance supervisor. He's been with me since I became president. Together, we keep this place running like clockwork. Weekly inspections, monthly maintenance, annual audits. Everything by the book. I became HOA president after our previous president embezzled $80,000 and disappeared. The board elected me because I'm an accountant. I rebuilt trust, implemented transparent budgets, held monthly town halls, made Lakeside Gardens a real community again. Everything was perfect until March 10th, 2024. That's when Claire Ashworth bought the house at 117 Magnolia Court. Cash purchase. $3.2 million. No mortgage, no inspection contingency, closed in 11 days. The woman showed up in a white Mercedes S-Class, designer sunglasses, carrying a purse I recognized from Vogue. Everything about her screamed money and an attitude that could cut glass, the kind of person who'd never been told no in her entire privileged life. Claire was 52, recently divorced from some hedge fund manager, to adult kids who never visited. She had money, time, and apparently a desperate need to make everyone around her miserable. Her first HOA meeting was memorable. She walked in 20 minutes late, Starbucks cup in hand, interrupted my budget presentation. This is boring. When do we discuss the real issues? Mrs. Ashworth, we're reviewing quarterly financials. This is a real issue. I mean important things, like why is my neighbor allowed to have that hideous garden gnome? It's bringing down property values. Her neighbor was Walt Henderson, 78 years old, retired teacher. That gnome was a gift from his late wife. Garden decorations are allowed as long as they're not offensive or dangerous. A gnome qualifies as neither. It's offensive to me. I demand it be removed. That's not how HOA rules work, Mrs. Ashworth. If you'd like to propose a rule change, you can submit it in writing. It requires a vote from all homeowners. She glared at me. I know who you are. Barbara? Accountant? Single? Living in your little 2-bedroom starter home while I own a waterfront mansion. Don't lecture me about rules. The room went silent. Frank, sitting in the back, looked ready to throw her out. I kept my voice calm. Mrs. Ashworth, this is a community meeting. We treat each other with respect. If you can't do that, I'll ask you to leave. She smirked. You can't kick me out. I'm a homeowner. I have rights. You have responsibilities too. Respect being the first one. She gathered her things dramatically. This HOA is a joke. You're a joke. I'll be filing complaints. Then she stormed out, Mercedes screeching out of the parking lot. Frank walked up after the meeting. That woman's trouble. Barbara, I've seen her type. She's going to make your life hell. He was right. Over the next 3 months, Claire filed 67 complaints. 67? About everything. Walt's, gnome, the Yamamoto family's wind chimes. The Peterson kids' basketball hoop, my own flower boxers being an eyesore. Every complaint required investigation, documentation, response. I spent hours dealing with her nonsense, but I handled it professionally. responded to every complaint within 48 hours, explained rules clearly, offered to meet and discuss concerns. Claire never showed up to meetings, just sent angry emails demanding action. Then things escalated in June. Claire decided she wanted to renovate her pool deck, built a massive outdoor kitchen, added a fire pit, all without submitting plans to the Architectural Review Committee. Frank spotted it during his weekly property inspection. "Barbara, you need to see this. Claire's doing major construction without approval. We drove au Bear." The construction was huge, easily $50,000 of work. Contractors everywhere, extension into the setback area, clear violation. I knocked on her door, Claire answered in yoga pants and a scowl. "What? Mrs. Ashworth, I see you're doing renovations. Did you submit plans to the Architectural Committee?" "Why would I? It's my property." "Because HOA rules require approval for any external modifications over $5,000. You're well over that threshold." "That's a stupid rule. It's in your HOA covenant. You signed it when you purchased the house." "I didn't read that." "My lawyer handled it. Ignorance of rules doesn't exempt you from following them. You need to submit plans immediately and halt construction until approval." She laughed. Actually laughed. "I'm not halting anything. I've already paid the contractors $60,000. The work continues. Then I'll have to fine you $300 per day until you comply. Go ahead. I'll sue you and this Mickey Mouse HOA for harassment." I issued the fines, sent certified letters, documented everything. Claire ignored it all, racked up $9,000 in fines over 30 days, then paid it, but only after finishing construction without approval. Her pool deck was beautiful and completely illegal under our setback requirements. Frank was furious. She just bought her way out of rules. If we let this slide, every homeowner will think they can do whatever they want. I'm not letting it slide. I'm consulting our attorney. Our HOA lawyer, Sandra Chun, reviewed everything. "Barbara, you have grounds to force removal. The structure violates setback requirements. You can require demolition." Demolition, that's $60,000 of construction. And she did it knowing she was breaking rules. "You enforce penalties." She ignored them. "Now you enforce compliance. Otherwise, your HOA has no authority." Frank agreed. Sandra's right. "You let Claire get away with this. Everyone else will follow." I called an emergency board meeting, explained the situation, showed photos, measurements, violations. The board voted unanimously Claire must remove the illegal structures or face legal action. I sent the letter July 20th, 30 days to comply. Claire's response arrived 3 days later, 5 pages. Single-spaced, written by her attorney. Threatening to sue me personally for harassment, discrimination, and abuse of power. "She's claiming you're targeting her because she's wealthy," Sandra said, reviewing the letter. "Ridiculous. I'm enforcing rules equally." "I know, but she's making this expensive. Litigation could cost the HOA $50,000. Even if we win." Frank had another idea. "What if she leaves, sells the house, moves somewhere else, and give up her $3.2 million waterfront property?" Never. "But what if she wanted to leave? What if we made her want to leave?" I should have shut down that conversation immediately. Should have said no. Should have followed procedure exactly. But I was tired, exhausted from months of Claire's harassment, drained from 67 frivolous complaints, frustrated that she bought her way around rules that everyone else followed. "What are you suggesting, Frank?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying sometimes difficult people leave when they realize they're not welcome. That was my first mistake, not shutting down Frank's vague implication that we could make Claire uncomfortable enough to sell. My second mistake came 3 days later. Frank and I were inspecting properties when we passed Claire's house. Her illegal pool deck sparkled in the Florida sun. $60,000 of beautiful violation. You know what would fix this? Frank said. If that deck accidentally failed inspection, structural issues, safety hazards, required immediate demolition. Frank, we can't falsify inspection reports. I'm not talking about falsifying anything. I'm talking about a thorough, detailed inspection. The kind that might find legitimate concerns. You think there are legitimate concerns? Barbara, I've been a contractor for 40 years. I can find concerns in any structure if I look hard enough. That was mistake number 2, letting Frank convince me that an aggressive inspection was justified, that finding every tiny violation was reasonable enforcement, that making Claire's life difficult was fair retaliation for her making mine hell. August 1st, Frank conducted what he called a comprehensive safety inspection of Claire's property. Took 4 hours, 300 photos, 17 pages of findings. Everything from improper drainage to questionable electrical work to potential structural instability in the deck supports. Frank, some of these seem ... aggressive. They're all legitimate concerns. Barbara, any one of them could be a safety issue. Could be... or... are. In my professional opinion, these are all violations that require immediate attention. I issued the violation notices. 8 separate citations, total fines of $1,200, plus required immediate halt to pool deck usage pending structural review by licensed engineer. Claire exploded, called me screaming, "You bitch! You're trying to destroy my property, Senora." Ashworth, these are legitimate safety concerns identified by our maintenance supervisor. Bullshit. This is retaliation because I won't tear down my deck. These are separate issues. If you'd like to dispute the findings, you can hire your own engineer. I'll hire an attorney. I'm suing you, Frank, and this entire HOA. She followed through. Lawsuit filed August 10th. Harassment, abuse of power, conspiracy to deprive property rights. Seeking $2.3 million in damages, plus legal fees, plus removal of me and Frank from our positions. The lawsuit hit me hard. I'd never been sued, never been accused of misconduct. I'd spent 6 years rebuilding this HOA's reputation, and Claire was destroying it with one filing. Frank remained calm. She's bluffing. She has no case. She has attorneys and unlimited money. And we have truth. Every action we took was legal. Every inspection legitimate. But was it ethical? Frank, were we enforcing rules or harassing her? That question haunted me. I reviewed everything, every email, every inspection, every fine. Was I being fair? Or had Claire's behavior pushed me into retaliation disguised as rule enforcement? I couldn't tell anymore. The line had blurred. August 15th, Claire showed up at my house. 8 p.m., banged on my door. When I opened it, she was drunk, visibly, aggressively drunk. You think you can destroy me? You think your little accountant brain can match mine? Mrs. Ashworth, you're intoxicated. You should go home. I know what you're doing. You and that contractor. You're conspiring, making up violations, trying to force me out. That's not true. Every violation was legitimate. Legitimate? You found structural issues that 3 other engineers say don't exist. You made them up. She'd hired engineers. They'd reviewed Frank's inspection. Found nothing wrong. The deck was sound. The electrical was fine. Everything Frank flagged was either exaggerated or fabricated. My stomach dropped. Mrs. Ashworth, if there were errors in the inspection, we'll review errors. Fraud. You committed fraud, and I'm going to prove it. She stumbled off my porch, got in her Mercedes, drove away weaving. I called Frank immediately. Claire just confronted me. Drunk, said she had engineers review your inspection. They found nothing wrong. Silence. Then They probably didn't look carefully enough. Frank, did you make up those violations? I found legitimate concerns. Frank, did you falsify that inspection report? Another pause. I found what we needed to find. Barbara, what we needed to protect this community from her. I felt sick. Oh my God. Frank, what did you do? What you wanted me to do. You said she was destroying this neighborhood. I gave you grounds to fight back. I never asked you to lie. You didn't have to ask. We both knew what needed to happen. I hung up, sat on my couch trying to process. Frank had falsified an inspection report. Using my authority as HOA president, with my implicit approval, even if I hadn't explicitly asked, and Claire had proof. I barely slept. By 6 a.m., I was at Sandra Chun's office. Told her everything. Every conversation with Frank, every inspection, every violation. Every moment, I should have stopped this but didn't. Sandra's face got paler with each sentence. Barbara, this is bad. If Frank falsified reports, that's fraud. And if you knowingly used those reports to issue violations, you're complicit. I didn't know he was lying. But you suspected. You questioned the inspection. You asked if it was ethical. That suggests awareness. What do I do? You resign as HOA president. Immediately. Before Claire's attorneys depose you. Before this becomes criminal. Criminal fraud, conspiracy, abuse of authority. These aren't just civil matters. Barbara, if prosecutors get involved, you could face charges. I drove to Lakeside Gardens administration office, typed my resignation letter. Effective immediately. Personal reasons. Apologize for any confusion. Recommend Frank's immediate termination pending investigation of inspection procedures. I submitted it to the board at 10 a.m. By noon, it was accepted. By 2 p.m., local news had the story. HOA president resigns amid lawsuit alleging fraud. By 5 p.m., my phone was ringing constantly. Homeowners demanding answers. Claire's attorney demanding depositions. Reporters wanting comments. I turned off my phone. Sat in my house. 2-bedroom starter home Claire had mocked at that first meeting. The house I'd bought with my savings. The house I'd been proud of. Until she made me feel small. And realized I'd destroyed everything. 6 years of reputation. 6 years of trust. 6 years of careful, honest work all gone because I let one terrible neighbor push me into retaliation I disguised as rule enforcement. Because I let Frank cross lines I should have stopped. Because I chose revenge over integrity. What would you do if a nightmare neighbor pushed you to cross ethical lines? Drop a comment with your state. Because Part 2 shows what happened when federal prosecutors got involved. When my $4.7 million mistake turned into criminal charges. And when I learned that retaliation, no matter how justified it feels, always costs more than it's worth. My name is Barbara Mitchell. I was HOA, president of Lakeside Gardens. I tried to enforce rules fairly, but I let one toxic person turn me into exactly what she accused me of being. HOA President vs. Nightmare Neighbor, Part 2. 3 days after my resignation, federal agents knocked on my door at 6:15 a.m., FBI. 2 agents in dark suits, badges out, faces serious, Special Agent Rebecca Torres and Special Agent Michael Chun. They weren't there to chat. Ms. Mitchell, we need to ask you some questions about your activities as HOA. President of Lakeside Gardens. I'd been expecting this. Sandra Chun, my attorney, had warned me. When you resign suddenly amid fraud allegations, federal prosecutors pay attention, especially when the fraud involves falsified inspection reports and abuse of authority. I want my attorney present. That's your right, but, Ms. Mitchell, we're here to help you. Claire Ashworth filed a federal complaint alleging conspiracy, fraud, and civil rights violations. We're investigating. The sooner you cooperate, the better this goes for you. I called Sandra. She arrived 40 minutes later. Briefcase in hand, game face on. We sat in my living room, me, Sandra, and 2 federal agents who'd spent the last 3 days building a case against me. Agent Torres opened a laptop. Ms. Mitchell, let's start with Frank Delgado. How long have you known him? 6 years, since I became HOA president. And his role: maintenance supervisor. He handles property inspections, repairs, contractor coordination. You trust him? Viv. Until 3 days ago. Agent Chun leaned forward. What happened 3 days ago? I took a breath. Sandra nodded. Time to tell the truth. Frank conducted an inspection of Claire Ashworth's pool deck. Found 17 violations. I issued citations based on his report. Claire hired independent engineers. They found nothing wrong. Frank lied in his inspection report. And you knew he was lying. Not at first, but I should have. I questioned whether the inspection was ethical. I asked if we were enforcing rules or harassing her. I suspected something was wrong, but I used the report anyway. Agent Torres made notes. Why? Because Claire Ashworth had been terrorizing this neighborhood for 5 months. 67 frivolous complaints. Harassment of elderly residents, violations of building codes. I was exhausted. Frustrated. When Frank gave me grounds to push back, I took them, even though I suspected they weren't legitimate. That's honest, Agent Chun said. Most people in your position deny everything. I'm an accountant. I've spent 6 years rebuilding trust in an HOA that was destroyed by embezzlement. I'm not going to lie to federal agents and make things worse. Sandra squeezed my hand. Good answer. Cooperating was our only strategy. Agent Torres pulled out more documents. Ms. Mitchell, we've been investigating Claire Ashworth. Her complaint triggered our review, but we found something interesting. Can you tell me about HOA finances? We collect $175 monthly from 312 households. That's $54,600 monthly, $655,200 annually. We maintain common areas, pay insurance, fund reserves. Who manages the money? I do. I'm the treasurer. I prepare budgets, pay bills, file tax returns. Everything's transparent. Monthly financial reports at board meetings, annual audits by independent CPAs. Agent Chun opened a folder. Ms. Mitchell, when did you last audit Claire Ashworth's homeowner account? I thought about it. March, when she moved in. Why? Check it again. Carefully, they left me with homework. Sandra and I spent the next 4 hours in my home office reviewing every document related to Claire Ashworth. Property records. Payment history. Correspondence, complaints. Everything. That's when we found it. Barbara, look at this. Sandra pointed at Claire's purchase documents. She bought the house March 5th, closed March 18th. First HOA dues payment should have been April 1st. Right. She paid on time. But look at the amount. She paid $175. Standard monthly dues. Correct. Barbara, her house is waterfront. Premium lot. According to your HOA covenants, waterfront properties pay $225 monthly, $50 premium for boat dock access. I pulled up the covenant, read it 3 times. Sandra was right. Claire had been underpaying by $50 monthly for 5 months. Total shortage, $250. Not a huge amount, but a clear violation. She's been complaining about everyone else breaking rules while she's been breaking them herself. And you never caught it because you were dealing with her 67 complaints. She kept you so busy defending against her attacks that you never audited her properly. We fund more. Claire's pool deck construction, a $60,000 project she did, without approval violated 3 separate covenant sections, not just setback requirements. She'd also exceeded maximum deck height, installed unapproved lighting, and added a fire pit without permits. She violated at least 6 major rules while filing 67 complaints about garden gnomes and wind chimes. Sandra smiled. Projection. Classic narcissist behavior. Accuse everyone else of what you're doing yourself. But the real discovery came when I pulled contractor invoices. Claire claimed she'd paid $60,000 for the pool deck. Paid in full. Shouldn't need to demolish because it's paid for, but I'd requested copies of her building permits through public records. The permits listed contractor estimates at $38,000. She's lying about the cost, Sandra said, inflating it to make demolition seem more unreasonable. Or she paid contractors under the table, avoided sales tax, didn't pull proper permits. Sandra started making calls. By evening, she'd talked to 3 contractors who'd worked on Claire's property. One, a Congre guy named Miguel Santusa, agreed to talk. We met him at a diner. He looked nervous. "Ms. Mitchell, I don't want trouble. I got a family. I'm not here to cause trouble, Miguel. I just need to know about the work you did for Claire Ashworth. She hired me to pour the pool deck. 4,200 square feet. She said she wanted it done fast. No permits. Cash only. I told her permits are required for work that size. She offered me 20% extra to skip permits. How much did she pay you? $18,000. Cash. Showed up with hundreds in a briefcase. I should have said no, but I got 3 kids. The money was good. Miguel had invoices, proof of payment. Dates, everything documented because he'd learned from past mistakes. Always keep records even on cash jobs. Claire had paid $18,000 cash for work she claimed cost $32,000. Sandra photographed everything. Miguel, would you testify to this, if subpoenaed? Do I have to? Possibly, if federal prosecutors pursue fraud charges. Against me or her? Both, potentially, but if you cooperate, they'll likely give you immunity. We left Miguel with Sandra's card, drove back to my house. I felt sick. Sandra, Miguel broke the law because Claire pressured him. He's got 3 kids. I don't want him in trouble. He broke the law, Barbara. But so did Claire. She paid cash to avoid taxes and permits. That's fraud, tax evasion, multiple federal crimes. Miguel's a small fish. Prosecutors want Claire. The next morning, I called Agent Torres. I found something. Claire Ashworth has been violating multiple HOA covenants while filing complaints against others. She underpaid dues, violated building codes, paid contractors cash to avoid permits and taxes. Can you prove it? I have financial records, contractor statements, and public permit documents. I'm sending everything. Torres was quiet for a moment. Ms. Mitchell, this changes things. Claire claimed you targeted her without cause. If she's been violating rules systematically, that undermines her harassment claims. I still shouldn't have used a falsified inspection report. No. But context matters. Send me everything you found. We'll review. I spent 3 days compiling evidence. Every covenant violation, every underpayment, every contractor invoice, every permit discrepancy. Built the kind of detailed case I should have built 5 months ago instead of letting Frank fabricate inspections. Frank called me during this process. Barbara, we need to talk. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, I need to explain. Against Sandra's advice, I met him at a coffee shop. Frank looked terrible. Hadn't shaved, dark circles under his eyes. The 60th-year-old retired contractor who'd been my best friend suddenly looked 80. I'm sorry, he started. Sorry doesn't fix this, Frank, I know, but you need to understand why. Why I did something so stupid. He told me his story. His wife Maria had died 2 years ago. Cancer. Same as my late husband Thomas. Frank threw himself into work. Being maintenance supervisor gave him purpose. Then Claire showed up, bullied Walt Henderson, whose wife had also died, bullied everyone Frank cared about. She reminded me of every rich person who'd ever looked down on me, every contractor who'd cheated workers, every person who thought money meant they were better. I wanted to hurt her. I wanted to take her down. So you falsified an inspection report. I convinced myself I was finding real problems, that I was protecting the community. But the truth, I was manufacturing violations because I hated her, and I dragged you down with me. I wanted to stay angry, but looking at Frank broken, ashamed, destroyed, I couldn't. He'd made a terrible choice, but he'd made it because he was grieving, exhausted, and pushed too far by someone who enjoyed causing pain. Frank, federal agents are investigating. Claire filed a complaint. They're building a fraud case. You need to get an attorney. I can't afford an attorney. I'm retired. Fixed income. I gave him Sandra's card. Call her. Tell her I referred you. She'll work out payments. Barbara, after what I did, you're my friend. You made a mistake. A big one. A big one. But you're still my friend. 2 weeks later, Agent Torres called. Ms. Mitchell, we need you to come to our office. Bring your attorney. Sandra and I showed up the next morning. Conference room. Agents Torres and Shun. Laptop. Documents. Coffee. Ms. Mitchell, we've completed our investigation. Here's what we found. Claire Ashworth violated multiple federal statutes. Tax evasion, paid contractors $18,000 in unreported cash. Permit fraud, submitted false documents claiming permitted work. Wire fraud, filed false insurance claims, overstating property improvements. Agent Chun continued. She also violated HOA covenants systematically while filing 67 complaints against neighbors. Classic Darvo deny. Attack. Reverse victim. An offender. She committed violations while accusing everyone else. What about me and Frank? Agent Torres looked at Sandra, then me. You used a falsified inspection report. That's serious. But we have context. Claire's pattern of harassment, Frank's documented grief and burnout, your immediate resignation and cooperation, your detailed evidence gathering. We're recommending the U.S. Attorney decline to prosecute you. Frank's case is borderline. He'll probably face administrative penalties, fines, community service, but no prison time. I felt my chest loosen for the first time in 3 weeks. And Claire, she's facing federal charges. Tax evasion, wire fraud, false statements. We're coordinating with IRS and local prosecutors. She's looking at significant penalties, possibly prison time if she doesn't cooperate. The news broke 3 days later. Lakeside Gardens homeowner charged with federal fraud. Claire's arrest photos showed her in an orange jumpsuit, designer sunglasses, nowhere in sight. The woman who'd terrorized an entire neighborhood with 67 complaints while breaking every rule herself was facing justice. But I felt no satisfaction, no victory. Just exhaustion and regret. I'd let Claire push me into making decisions I'd never have made otherwise. I'd let Frank falsify reports. I'd prioritized revenge over integrity. Even if I wasn't facing charges, I'd destroyed my reputation. The Lakeside Gardens board called me 2 days after Claire's arrest. Barbara, we need to talk about your resignation. Board President Marcus Thompson sat across from me, looking uncomfortable. We've reviewed everything. The federal investigation, Claire's arrest, the evidence you compiled. I falsified inspection reports. Marcus, well, Frank did, but I used them. That's unforgivable. You also uncovered systematic fraud by a homeowner who wept HOA rules while breaking them herself. You cooperated with federal agents. You provided evidence that led to criminal charges. That doesn't excuse what I did. No, but it provides context. Barbara, this community doesn't want you gone. We want you to stay on as president. We're voting to rescind your resignation. I was stunned. You can't be serious. We're unanimous. 312 households want you back. You made one mistake under extraordinary circumstances. Claire made 67 complaints while committing federal crimes. We know who the real problem was. I wanted to say yes, wanted to reclaim my position, my reputation, my life. But sitting in that conference room, I realized something. I needed to say no. Marcus, I appreciate this, More than you know, but I can't come back. Why not? Because I crossed a line. I let anger and frustration override judgment. I let Frank commit fraud in my name. Even if homeowners forgive me, I haven't forgiven myself. I need to step away, rebuild my integrity somewhere else. Marcus looked sad but understanding. What will you do? I'm not sure, but I know this: I'll never again let someone push me into compromising my values. Not even someone as toxic as Claire Ashworth. Frank took a plea deal. $5,000 fine. 200 hours community service. 3 years probation. No jail time. He apologized to the entire community at a board meeting. Resigned permanently. Started seeing a therapist to process Maria's death and his grief-driven decisions. Claire's trial is scheduled for next year. Her attorneys are trying to negotiate a plea. But federal prosecutors aren't budging. They want to make an example of someone who weaponized HOA rules while committing federal crimes. She's facing up to 8 years prison and $250,000 in fines. As for me, I started my own accounting business. Small, independent, helping people with taxes, bookkeeping, financial planning, clients who trust me because I'm honest. Because I learned that integrity matters more than winning, more than revenge, more than proving you're right. Walt Henderson sends me Christmas cards. The Yamamotos invited me to dinner. Miguel Santos, the contractor Claire pressured into unpermitted work, hired me to organize his business finances. People who saw what happened and understood that good people can make mistakes under extraordinary pressure. I'd drive past Lakeside Gardens sometimes. See the Olympia pool, tennis court, boat docks. Everything I helped maintain for 6 years. I miss it. Miss the community. Miss feeling like I belonged somewhere. But I don't regret leaving. Because staying would have meant pretending I hadn't crossed an ethical line. Would have meant accepting forgiveness I hadn't earned yet. Someday, maybe, but not now. What would you do if someone pushed you so hard you compromised your values? Drop a comment with your state, because part 3 shows what happened when Claire's trial revealed something nobody expected: evidence that her harassment wasn't random. She had a plan, and I was always the target. My name is Barbara Mischel, former HOA president, current small business owner. I made mistakes. I'm owning them, and I'm learning that rebuilding integrity takes longer than destroying it, but it's worth every difficult step. HOA President vs. Nightmare Neighbor, Part 3. 6 months after Claire Ashworth's arrest, her attorney called me on a Tuesday morning at 9:43. Senora Mitchell, my client would like to speak with you. I was sitting in my new office, Barbara Mitchell Accounting Services, a modest suite in downtown Naples, reviewing quarterly tax returns for a small restaurant owner named Maria Rodriguez, who'd become one of my first loyal clients after my resignation from Lakeside Gardens. The office was small, just me, a desk, filing cabinets, and a coffee maker that worked overtime. But it was mine, built on honesty, built on integrity. I was slowly rebuilding one tax return at a time. Why would Claire want to talk to me? I asked, setting down my pen and giving the call my full attention. She has information, critical information about why she targeted you specifically. She's willing to share everything in exchange for your testimony at her sentencing hearing. Testimony for what exactly? Character witness, explaining mitigating circumstances that led to her actions. Context the judge needs to understand. I laughed. Your client terrorized an entire neighborhood, committed federal fraud, harassed elderly residents, and pushed me into compromising my ethics. Why would I testify on her behalf? Because what she did wasn't random. She had specific reasons, reasons you deserve to understand. I should have said no immediately, but curiosity is powerful. After 6 months of wondering why Claire spent 5 months destroying my life, I wanted answers. One meeting, neutral location, my attorney present, no promises. We met at a coffee shop. Sandra Chun sat beside me. Claire walked in wearing county jail orange handcuffs, escorted by a marshal. She'd lost weight. Hair unwashed. Designer sunglasses replaced by dark circles and hollow cheeks. She sat down. The marshal stood nearby. Claire's attorney, a public defender named James Morris, opened his briefcase. "Ms. Mitchell, thank you for coming. My client has agreed to full disclosure in exchange for your consideration of a character statement." "I haven't agreed to anything. I'm here to listen." Claire looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I need you to understand. What I did wasn't about garden gnomes or pool decks. It was about justice. Justice for my daughter." Claire pulled out a folder. Photos. Documents. Medical records. Her name was Emily. My daughter, she died 3 years ago. Age 20. Preventable medical error at Morrison Medical Center. The hospital admitted fault. Settled for $2.8 million. But no amount of money brings back your child. I looked at the photos. Young woman, beautiful, blonde, like her mother, smiling, and graduation photos, hiking pictures, family dinners. I'm very sorry for your loss. But what does this have to do with me? The attending physician who made the error that killed my Emily was Dr. Thomas Mitchell. Your husband. The world stopped. Thomas. My Thomas. That's impossible. Thomas was an engineer, not a doctor. Claire shook her head. Different Thomas Mitchell. Same name. But when I was researching the settlement, consumed with rage and grief, I hired a private investigator. I found your husband's obituary. Thomas Mitchell, Columbus, Ohio. Moved to Naples. Same age as the doctor. I thought it was him. I felt sick. You thought my husband killed your daughter? For 6 months. Yes, I paid an investigator $15,000 to find Dr. Thomas Mitchell. He found your husband's obituary. Found you. Found that you'd moved to Naples right after my settlement. So you bought a house in my neighborhood. I bought the most expensive house I could find, $3.2 million cash. Wanted to show you that your husband's victim had money, had power, could make your life hell. Sandra was scribbling notes. When did you realize you had the wrong person? Claire looked down. 3 months in. July. My investigator called, said he'd made a terrible mistake. The Dr. Thomas Mitchell who killed Emily was still living in Columbus, still practicing. Different person entirely. You terrorized me for 3 months after discovering your mistake. I was in too deep. I'd filed 67 complaints. Built a pool deck without permits. Paid contractors cash. If I admitted the mistake, I'd face legal consequences. So you doubled down, filed federal complaints, tried to destroy me rather than admit you were wrong. Yes. I chose to destroy an innocent person rather than face consequences for my actions. I processed everything. Claire hadn't hated me because I was HOA president. She'd hated me because she thought I was married to the man who killed her daughter. When she learned the truth, she committed federal crimes to cover her tracks. Why tell me this now? Because I'm going to prison. 8 years, if the prosecutor gets their way. My attorney thinks you testifying about my grief, my loss, my mistaken identity might get that reduced to 5 years. You want me to help you get a lighter sentence. I want you to understand that good people can make terrible choices when they're grieving, when they want justice so badly they stop seeing clearly. Sandra and I stepped outside. Don't testify for her. She's manipulating you, using your grief. I know. Then why consider it? Because she's right. Good people make terrible choices when grieving. I let Frank falsify reports. I compromised my values. That's different. You stopped. You resigned. You cooperated. Claire doubled down. Committed more crimes. But she's telling the truth now. That takes courage. Or desperation. Don't let your empathy be weaponized. We went back inside. Claire looked hopeful. I made my decision. I'll testify, but not the way you want Airface fail. What do you mean? I'll testify truthfully. I'll tell the court about your daughter Emily. Your grief, the mistaken identity. But I'll also tell them about Walt Henderson's tears, the Yamamotos, Frank's falsified reports that happened because you pushed us past breaking point. That won't help me. No. But it'll be honest. You want me as your character witness? Fine. I'll witness to your character. The good and the bad, the grief and the cruelty, the mistake and the cover-up. The court will decide. Claire was crying. Real tears. I don't know who I became. Emily would be ashamed. She was kind, generous. Would never hurt people the way I hurt you. Then honor her memory differently. Stop trying to reduce your sentence. Accept responsibility. Take the full 8 years. Use that time to become someone Emily would be proud of. 3 months later, on a cold morning in January 2025, Claire's sentencing hearing arrived. Federal courthouse in Fort Myers. The building was imposing marble columns, high ceilings, the weight of justice hanging in the air. Judge Patricia Reeves, preceding 60, 2 years old, former federal prosecutor, known throughout Florida for being tough but scrupulously fair. Prosecutors wanted 8 years. Defense wanted 3. I was called as a witness, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, then told all of it. Your Honor, Claire Ashworth targeted me because she believed my late husband killed her daughter. He didn't. She discovered her mistake after 3 months. Instead of apologizing, she escalated, committed federal crimes, tried to destroy me rather than admit she was wrong. I continued. But I understand grief. My husband Thomas died from cancer. I threw myself into being HOA president. Built community. Claire threw herself into revenge. Destroyed community. We both processed loss differently. Claire pushed me into terrible choices. Frank falsified reports. I used them. We crossed ethical lines. But when I realized what I'd done, I resigned, cooperated, owned my mistakes. Claire doubled down, committed more crimes. Even now, she's trying to minimize rather than accept full responsibility. Judge Reeves took notes. Ms. Mitchell, are you recommending leniency or maximum sentence? I'm recommending justice. Whatever that looks like. Claire committed serious crimes while grieving her daughter. Those are both facts. The court should weigh both. I stepped down. The defense called witnesses. Claire's ex's band testified about Emily's death, destroying their marriage. Her son testified about his mother's breakdown. The prosecution called Walt Henderson, the Yamamotos. Frank. Then Claire testified. Her attorney had advised against it. But she insisted. I thought Barbara's husband killed my daughter. I wanted revenge. I was wrong. When I discovered that, I kept going because I was too proud to admit my mistake. I committed federal crimes to cover up my harassment. I destroyed a good person's reputation. A person who'd spent 6 years rebuilding trust in a community that had been devastated by embezzlement. I pushed her maintenance supervisor, a widower, still grieving his own wife, into falsifying reports that went against everything he believed in. I filed 67 false complaints against innocent neighbors, while simultaneously violating 6 major covenant rules myself. I paid contractors $18,000 in illegal cash payments while claiming under oath that it cost $60,000. I lied repeatedly to federal agents. I obstructed justice. I deserve the maximum sentence recommended by federal guidelines. 8 full years. Judge Reeves looked surprised. Mrs. Ashworth, your attorney recommends leniency. You're asking for maximum sentence? I'm asking for real justice, not the kind I tried to get through revenge, the legal kind. Whatever you think fits my crimes. The courtroom was silent. Judge Reeves reviewed documents. Finally spoke. Mrs. Ashworth, I've presided over federal cases for 18 years. I've never seen a defendant request maximum sentence. That shows either extraordinary remorse or extraordinary manipulation. Your crimes are serious. tax evasion, wire fraud, harassment. You terrorized a community while committing federal offenses. Guidelines recommend 8 years. But, Senora, Mitchell's testimony gives me pause. You targeted her based on mistaken identity while grieving. Those are mitigating factors. However, you doubled down after discovering your mistake, committed additional crimes to cover tracks, showed no remorse until facing consequences. Those are aggravating factors. I'm sentencing you to 6 years federal prison, 3 years supervised release, $42,000 restitution to Lakeside Gardens. HOA 6 years is less than maximum but more than defense requested. It reflects both your grief and your crimes. Use that time to become the person your daughter would be proud of, not the person who hurt innocent people in her name. Claire was led away in handcuffs. She looked at me, mouthed thank you. I nodded. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But acknowledgement. She'd told the truth. That counted for something. Outside the courthouse, Sandra and I sat on the steps. 6 years. She'll serve maybe 4 with good behavior. That's 4 years to think about what she did. To process Emily's death. To become better? You think people can change? I think people can try. Whether they succeed, that's up to them. Frank was waiting by my car. How'd it go? 6 years, plus restitution. Good. She earned it. We stood there, me. Frank Sandre 3. People caught in Claire's crossfire. Who survived? Frank, how's therapy? Hard, but good. I'm processing Maria's death, dealing with guilt about the reports. Making amends? Good you. How's the business? Growing. 48 clients now. People who appreciate honesty. You're rebuilding. We both are. Takes time. Walt Henderson called that evening, Barbara, I heard about the sentencing. Thank you. I just told the truth, Walt. You helped us understand why she was so cruel. Doesn't excuse it, but explains it. How's the neighborhood? Better. New president. Everyone misses you. I miss them too. Marcus Thompson sent me an email 2 days later. Subject: thank you. Body: Barbara. Claire's sentencing brought closure. The neighborhood knows what happened. Why you resigned? Everyone understands. You're welcome here anytime. Not as president. Just as Barbara, the person who saved our community twice. I cried reading that. I'd spent 6 years building Lakeside Gardens. 5 months watching it fall apart. 6 months rebuilding myself. And now, finally, people understood. Claire writes me letters from federal prison in Coleman, Florida. Once a month, always on the 15th. I don't respond. Sandra advised me not to establish communication that could be used later, but I read every single letter. Keep them in a folder in my desk drawer. She talks about Emily, about the grief counseling program she's attending, about the anger management classes, about the other inmates she helps with their legal case. Turns out a woman who committed federal fraud and got caught knows quite a lot about legal mistakes and how to avoid them. I'm slowly becoming the person Emily would be proud of. She wrote in her most recent letter dated December 5th, not the person who destroyed your life and terrorized an innocent neighborhood in her name. That transformation takes time. Real time. Deep soul-searching time. But I have 6 years to do this work. Probably 4 with good behavior if I stay on track. And I'm using every single day. Every therapy session. Every moment of reflection. I'm using all of it to become better. I keep those letters in a manila folder labeled simply Claire. Someday, maybe years from now, maybe I'll respond. Maybe I'll write back and tell her about my business, my 48 clients, my slow, careful rebuilding of integrity, one honest tax return at a time. Maybe I'll tell her. I truly understand now. That grief makes even good people crazy. That unbearable pain can turn kind souls into monsters. That redemption is always possible if you're willing to do the hard work. But not yet. Definitely not yet. The wounds are still too fresh. The damage to recent forgiveness isn't something you decide to do. It's something that happens slowly, quietly, over time. Understanding comes first. Then acceptance. Then healing. And then, maybe years from now, maybe forgiveness. But I'm not there yet. And that's okay. Healing has its own timeline. You can't rush it. Can't force it. Can only do the work and trust the process. What would you do if you learned your enemy's cruelty came from unbearable grief? Drop a comment with your state, because part 4 shows what happened 2 years later when Claire got early release and showed up at my office with an offer that would test everything I'd learned about integrity, forgiveness, and second chances. My name is Barbara Mitchell, former HOA president, current small business owner. I learned that hurt people hurt people. That grief can turn good people into monsters. That understanding doesn't mean excusing, and that rebuilding takes longer than destroying, but it's worth every difficult step. HOA President Via's Nightmare Neighbor Part 4, final 2 years and 3 months after Claire's sentencing. On a Tuesday morning in April 2027, my office door opened at 9:15. I was reviewing quarterly taxes for a construction company, ironically. The same one Miguel Santos now ran successfully after I helped him organize his business properly. I looked up, expecting a regular client. Claire Ashworth stood in my doorway. She looked completely different. Thinner, yes, but healthy thin. Hair shorter, cut to shoulder length. Natural blonde instead of the processed highlights she'd worn before. No designer clothes, simple faded jeans, plain white t-shirt, worn canvas sneakers. No makeup, no jewelry, no expensive handbag. Just Claire, raw and real, and standing in my office after serving 2 years of her 6-year federal sentence. "Hello, Barbara." Her voice was quiet, respectful, humble. Nothing like the commanding tone she'd used at HOA meetings or the screaming rage from her arrest. "May I come in?" I should have said no. Should have called building security. Should have protected the peace I'd carefully rebuilt over 2 long years. But curiosity, that same dangerous curiosity that made me meet her before sentencing, made me nod slowly. "Close the door behind you." She sat in the chair across from my desk. The same chair where clients sat when they needed help with taxes or bookkeeping or financial planning. The same chair where Miguel had sat crying about his family when I agreed to help him. Claire sat there now, hands folded carefully in her lap, looking at me with eyes that had seen the inside of federal prison in Coleman, Florida, for exactly 783 days. "How did you get out?" I asked, directly. "I thought you had at least 4 more years. Minimum with good behavior, plus more." I completed every program they offered. Grief counseling, anger management, conflict mediation training. Helped other inmates with legal research. My attorney filed for compassionate early release. Judge Reeves personally approved it with strict conditions. What conditions exactly? 3 years of supervised release starting immediately. Weekly mandatory therapy sessions with a licensed trauma counselor. 200 hours of community service, continuing monthly restitution payments to Lakeside Gardens until the full $42,000 is paid. And one more major thing. I had to present a detailed rehabilitation plan, show what I'd do with my freedom, how I'd contribute to society, how I'd make amends for the damage I caused. I leaned back in my chair, studied her face, looking for manipulation. "Performance." The old Claire. "And what's your rehabilitation plan?" "That's why I'm here. I want to hire you as a client. Pay you properly for your professional services." I almost laughed out loud. "Hire me? For what possible reason?" "To help me start a non-profit organization, a charitable foundation in Emily's name, to help other grieving parents who've lost children to medical malpractice. To turn my daughter's death into something that helps people. The room was completely silent, except for the hum of my computer and distant traffic sounds from outside. You want to start a charitable foundation. I want to create something genuinely good from something unimaginably terrible. Emily died because a doctor made a preventable mistake. I destroyed innocent lives because I targeted the wrong person in my rage. Both things were horribly wrong. Both caused immeasurable pain to innocent people. I can't fix either one. I can never bring Emily back or undo the damage I did to you, but I can try to help others avoid the same pain. And you specifically want me to help you do this. You're an accountant. You understand nonprofits, tax structures, financial planning, budgets. More importantly, you understand grief on a level most people never will. You lost Thomas to cancer. You know what it's like to lose someone you built an entire life with, and you understand forgiveness better than anyone I know. You testified at my sentencing when you could have completely destroyed me with your words. I told the complete truth. That's not the same as forgiveness. I know, but you gave me a real chance at redemption. By telling the whole truth, both the good parts and the terrible parts, you let the judge see me as a human being who made catastrophic mistakes. Not just a monster. That testimony probably saved me from the full 8 years. It showed there was hope for change. I stood up, walked to my window overlooking downtown Naples, looked out at the sunny day, palm trees swaying gently, life continuing like it always does, whether we're ready or not. Claire, I've spent 2 incredibly hard years rebuilding my integrity, brick by brick, rebuilding professional trust, one client at a time, building a business based entirely on honesty and transparency. Why on earth would I risk all of that by working with someone who terrorized me? My friends, my entire neighborhood, because that's exactly what Emily would have wanted. She volunteered every weekend at animal shelters, helped homeless people, tutored kids who couldn't afford education. She believed in second chances with her whole heart. She would absolutely hate what I did in her name. She'd be horrified, but she'd also believe I deserve a genuine chance to become better, to do better, to be the kind of person she was. I turned back to face her. Tell me about this foundation. Give me specifics, not emotional appeals. I need actual, concrete plans. Claire pulled out a thick folder from the canvas bag she'd brought. Inside were documents. Detailed typed plans. Professional mission statements. Realistic budget projections. Partnership proposals with hospitals and medical ethics boards. Everything organized with tabs and labels. The Emily Ashworth Foundation would provide 3 core services to families. First, completely free legal consultation for families dealing with medical malpractice cases. Help them navigate the complex system without getting taken advantage of by predatory lawyers. Second, free grief counseling specifically designed for parents who've lost children to medical errors. No insurance required. No income requirements. Completely free. Third, advocacy work for better. Hospital oversight, transparent error reporting, and patient safety improvements. The plans were incredibly detailed. Professional quality, clearly not something she'd thrown together in the last week. How long have you been working on developing this? 18 months, ever since I realized I'd probably qualify for early release with good behavior. I wanted to have a genuine, real plan, not just empty promises, not just words. Actual, actionable steps that could help real families in crisis. Where's the funding coming from? Nonprofits need substantial capital to operate. I still have $1.4 million left from the original settlement. After legal fees and restitution payments, I'm donating every single penny of it, all of it. The money that came from Emily's death will now help other families facing similar tragedies. I'll live very modestly, get a regular job to support myself, pay my own rent, and food, but the entire foundation gets the full settlement money. I sat back down slowly, looked carefully at the documents spread across my desk. The budget was sound, conservative, realistic. No inflated projections or magical thinking. You've really thought this through carefully. I had 2 years in federal prison and absolutely nothing but time. Time to think deeply about who I was, who I became after Emily died, who I want to be for the rest of my life. This foundation is how I honor Emily properly. Not through rage and revenge, through help and healing. Why me specifically? There are literally hundreds of qualified accountants in Florida. Because you're the person I hurt most deeply. If you can work with me, if you can help me build something genuinely good from the complete ashes of what I destroyed, that proves redemption is actually real, that people truly can change. That forgiveness might be possible even after terrible harm. I looked at Claire carefully. Really looked at her, saw the woman who'd terrorized my neighborhood with 67 false complaints, who'd pushed me into compromising my professional ethics, who'd committed multiple federal crimes and gone to prison. But I also saw something else. Now, someone who'd faced real consequences, done genuine therapeutic work, changed fundamentally at her core. I need time to think about this very carefully. I need to talk to people whose opinions I trust. Frank, Sandra, my attorney, Walt Henderson, the members of the community you hurt so badly. I absolutely cannot make this decision alone. I completely understand. Take whatever time you need. I'm not going anywhere. I have 3 full years of supervised release, weekly therapy appointments that are mandatory. I'm staying right here in Naples, building a new life here. Where are you living currently? Halfway house on 5th Avenue South. Room with 2 other women, working at Publix grocery store, stocking shelves and bagging groceries. 22 hours per week. Minimum wage. It's honest work. It's incredibly humbling. It's exactly what I need right now to stay grounded. She stood to leave, handed me the thick folder. Everything's in here. Complete business plans, detailed mission statements, legal documents, financial projections, partnership proposals. Review it carefully. Talk to whoever you need to talk to. If you decide you can't work with me, I'll understand completely. But I had to ask. I had to try. After she left, I sat alone holding the folder for a long time. Finally called Frank. You're not going to believe who just walked into my office. 20 minutes later, Frank was sitting across from me, reading carefully through Claire's detailed foundation plans. He'd aged noticeably these past 2 years. More gray hair, deeper lines around his eyes, but healthier somehow. Therapy had genuinely helped him process Maria's death properly. This is actually really good. A sighed slowly, flipping through pages. The mission is solid and needed. The budget makes genuine sense. The services are desperately needed. Barbara, families dealing with medical malpractice really do need help. The entire system is designed to protect hospitals and doctors, not victims and their families. But it's Claire, the same woman who pushed you into falsifying inspection reports. And I made that choice myself, not her. Me? I'm the one who falsified those reports because I was angry and grieving and wanted to hurt someone who I thought deserved it. She gave me the target, but I pulled the trigger. I'm the one who crossed that line. I've had 2 years of intensive therapy to fully understand that distinction. He closed the folder carefully. People genuinely can change. Barbara, I've changed. You've changed. Why can't Claire change too, if she does the real work? I called Sandra Chun next. My attorney, my advisor, my voice of legal reason and caution. She came to my office that same afternoon, read through every single document with her trained lawyer eyes, looking carefully for traps, hidden agendas, potential legal liabilities, protection issues. After a full hour, she finally looked up at me. It's completely legitimate. I don't see any obvious problems or red flags. The foundation structure is legally sound. The mission is clear and focused. The financials are appropriately transparent. But there's a but coming, isn't there? But you absolutely need to protect yourself thoroughly. If you decide to do this, you need an ironclad contract, crystal clear terms, defined scope of work, proper payment structure, strong exit clauses. If things go wrong, you cannot let your natural empathy override your business sense and self-protection. Is that lawyer talk for don't do it? It's lawyer talk for if you do decide to do it very smartly and carefully. Barbara, I've watched you slowly rebuild your integrity and reputation over 2 years. 48 loyal clients now. 0 complaints. Perfect reputation. This decision could potentially risk all of that hard work. But it could also be the ultimate proof that you genuinely believe in redemption, that you actually practiced what you preach about, second chances. That evening, I drove to Lakeside Gardens for the first time in 2 years. The neighborhood looked essentially the same. Beautifully manicured lawns, gorgeous homes, Olympic-sized pool, sparkling in the evening light, but it felt different somehow. Quieter and calmer. Less like an active battlefield. I knocked on Walt Henderson's front door. Barbara, Walt's weathered face lit up with genuine joy. Now 80 years old, but still mentally sharp and physically active. His late wife's garden gnome still sat proudly in the front yard. The same one Claire had demanded he remove. "Come in! Martha! Look who's here!" Walt's new wife Martha Heed, remarried just a year ago after being widowed, welcomed me warmly with a long hug. We sat in their comfortable living room. I told them everything about Claire's unexpected visit, about the foundation idea, about the difficult choice I was facing. Walt listened with careful attention, hands folded thoughtfully, exactly the way he used to listen to students back when he taught high school English for 35 years. When I finally finished, he was quiet for a long, meaningful moment before speaking. "Do you remember what you told Judge Reeves at Claire's sentencing hearing?" I told the complete truth. All of it, both good and bad. You said understanding doesn't mean excusing, but you also said that people can make terrible choices when they're grieving. You gave her context without giving her a free pass. That was genuine wisdom, Barbara. Real wisdom. So what do I do now? How do I decide? You decide whether she's genuinely done the deep internal work. Whether she's authentically changed or just skillfully performing change to get what she wants. You're a trained accountant. You're excellent at reading numbers and financial data, but you're also good at reading people and their true intentions. What do your deepest instincts tell you about her? I thought carefully about Claire sitting in my office. No designer clothes, no makeup, no attitude or entitlement. Just a woman who'd served hard time, done serious therapy, built detailed, realistic plans, and was genuinely trying to create something good from unimaginable tragedy. My instincts tell me she's genuine, but my instincts have been seriously wrong before about people. Martha spoke up thoughtfully. "Barbara, honey, you're not the same person who let Frank falsify those inspection reports 2 years ago. You've grown substantially. You've changed. You've done your own hard work. Maybe that's exactly why Claire came specifically to you, because you understand genuine transformation from the inside. You've lived it yourself. My name is Barbara Mitchell. I'm 52 years old. HOA, president of Lakeside Gardens again. Accountant, board member of the Emily Ashworth Foundation. And I learned that hurt people, but healed people can heal people. Forgiveness isn't a moment, it's a long process. Redemption requires consequences, real accountability, therapy, time, and building something beautiful from ashes. Document everything. Do the work, and believe that becoming better is always possible for anyone willing to try. End.